Hello and welcome to Inside Scoop. I'm Sumi Das, and joining me is Josh Lowensohn, senior writer for CNET. Josh, thanks for being with us.
Great to be here.
Okay, so Apple's corporate legal team is getting a workout. Last year, it was the patent trial of the century, which they won. This year, it's a slightly different set of players. It's Apple versus the DOJ. What is the case? What are the charges?
Sure. So last year, the Department of Justice basically sued Apple along with a bunch of book publishers, the major book publishers, accusing them of fixing prices on ebooks. So their basic argument was that when Apple came along, prices for ebooks went from $10 up to $12, $13, $14, even $15. So the DOJ is really trying to figure out whether they all work together to make that happen and how that really affected the ebooks market.
And so far, it's just been day one of opening arguments, right?
Yeah, this thing basically just started. It's set to last about 3 weeks. So both sides kind of opened up today, and then we're going to see witnesses from both sides, including Apple's Eddie Q, who runs the iBook store and runs iTunes and iCloud, along with some of the CEOs from the major publishers.
Apple was offered a settlement. They've said that they turned it down. They're the only ones, right? I mean, everybody else settled out of court?
Yep, and a lot of the legal experts we talked to before the trial started said that Apple was actually going to settle. It was almost guaranteed. But then last week, Tim Cook, during an interview, said, you know what, they offered us a settlement. We said we wouldn't sign it because it basically said that we were wrong and we were making bad decisions. And they said they didn't want to do that.
They didn't want to make that admission.
Exactly. But at the same time, the judge in this case in a pretrial hearing said, you know what, I'm siding with the DOJ. It looks like Apple doesn't really have quite the case. So that's what kind of makes this interesting. What does Apple really have up its sleeve that kind of makes them think they're going to win it?
Do we have an idea of what their case might be? I mean, based on sort of the responses we've seen so far?
Yeah, so far they really say that this is similar to music. Before they came along, it was kind of scattered. People weren't really making as much money. It was hard for consumers. And then they came along with the iPad and the iBook store, and all of a sudden everything worked out again. I don't know if people are going to buy that. I think one of the key problems here is that before they came along, books were a lot cheaper.
Right.
But Apple's argument so far has really been that publishers weren't really making a lot of money. So if you look at something like music...
They were doing publishers a favor.
Exactly. If you look at something like music, it made sense that maybe people weren't getting paid because of piracy. And Steve Jobs at the time argued that if you price this any lower, people are just going to stop buying it.
Right. So why is this case significant? I mean, we are seeing huge increases in the amount of people who are reading ebooks, right?
Yeah, it's not just about the product itself of ebooks. It's also about how much control a company can have over fixing these prices, if that's indeed what happened. If you look at something like this, it's all about a clause that says one company has to get the same price as another company as long as it's lower. And that's kind of been, it's kind of a semantic issue, but it also kind of takes that idea and says, what else could this be applied to? Not just books, but also movies, TV shows, anything like that.
Any precedents that it might set.
And if you look at a company like Apple or Amazon or anybody else, where they have their hands in all these different markets, something like this can have a very big impact.
You're going to be keeping an eye on this case?
Absolutely. We're going to be there in court every day.
Looking forward to that, I'm sure. Thank you, Josh. We will check in with you again. For Inside Scoop, I'm Sumi Das. Thanks for watching.